Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be doing a call-in special. Just finished with Stefan Molyneux's uh, um, live show, which went pretty good. I think we were on for about 2 hours, but unfortunately we weren't able to do Q&A, so maybe people can call in and we'll do a Q&A and maybe do some uh, answers on chat. So we'll let people start logging in and watching the show, and we'll do a call-in. This is a little special, talking about what's going on in the world and whatever you want to talk about. Oh. I forgot to put in Can you hear me now? Testing. Sound good? Great. I can't turn it up. Better? Good? All right, so now we got about 124 people watching. And so we're going to do some call-ins now. And again, for people that just logged in or couldn't hear me, I just finished a episode with Stefan on his channel. We had a pretty good showing. I think it was around 6,000, over 6,000. But we talked for about 2 hours or so, and we didn't have any chance for a Q&A. So I'm going to do a little Q&A. People can call in. So I'm going to give the number out, and we'll do some call-ins tonight. You ready? Here we go. If someone wants to call in, phone's open. So the people that didn't watch Stefan's show, we talked about the difference between the death rates that were predicted in February to where they are right now, and what's potential with the second wave and my perspective on an acute phase versus a chronic phase, and a little bit about the antibody issue, the civil liberties side of it, and we had a pretty good conversation about communism, and the problems with communism and what's going on with certain industries placating to the CCP, the infiltration of the CCP. But this idea that we have to take risks now. It was prudent to actually start a shelter-in-place program in the United States. But now is the time to start getting back to work and taking risks. I've made several videos about this very fact, that we can't just stay in shelter in place and not live life. We have to take risks and make sure that we build our nation back again. And there's a lot that we have to do. I mean, we've lost over $4 trillion in our GDP, and a lot of people have been laid off. Over 30 million people have been laid off in the United States. States have had huge deficits. So it's going to take a while to dig out of this hole. So it's time to take risks. But we also have to, realize that there may be some reinfection that takes place in some regions of the country. But I think the far majority of the country will not see that much of an effect. And what is interesting from a chaos point of view is that nature is pretty robust. And with this infection, we kind of realize that at least at the acute phase, that we were able to slow that down. Now, shelter in place had a big part to play in that. We also have better health care than we had in 1918, Spanish flu pandemic. But we need to start taking risks and making sure our constitutional freedoms aren't eroded. I'm worried about forced vaccine program. I'm worried about E7. I'm worried about surveillance state. I'm worried about things that will erode our constitutional freedoms that I put under the umbrella called the Bio-Patriot Act. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be in one act. It might be multiple acts that it's put in, like decashing. So we have to be vigilant. This virus crisis is not just the Wuhan virus. It is the erosion of our civil liberties that is the next big battle. We just kind of like starting to see the beginnings of the end of the battle with the first wave of the Wuhan crisis, the CCP virus, SARS-CoV-2, or whatever you want to call it. But there's another battle over the horizon, and that is to make sure that our constitutional freedoms aren't eroded. And the people that were trying to institute these constitutional erosions, the people that are in power, or the people that are pulling the strings of the people in power, they wanted to make sure that we stayed sheltered in place and that we had even more damage in the economy to make us even weaker. Look at the problems that we're having with the food now. Food shortages, and you have ranchers killing off their cattle and pigs and chickens, and food's wasting in the field. There was an article the other day about potatoes not being bought because of restaurants. We all have to band together and make sure that this food isn't wasted. And a lot of this stuff can be processed and packaged in a way where it can be housed for a few. Dr. Paul speaking.
Hi, Dr. Cottrell.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
If you could just turn down your volume on your computer so there's not a feedback. You still there?
Yes.
So how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm calling from Buffalo. I actually have a question that no one can answer, and I want to know your opinion. How come all of the higher ups don't wear masks and we have to?
Well, I think when you say the higher ups, you're talking about like the president and the vice president, or what?
Even the mayors.
Well, I think part of the reason is that they don't want. I don't think they want to instill too much fear in the nation, because we're starting to get into the point where we're going to start getting out of shelter in place for a big portion of the country, and
Okay.
I think that plus when they're talking, it's hard to talk with those masks on.
Exactly.
So when they're on
actually feel
TV.
like I've caught a cold from breathing in my own breath.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this early in February, and Dr. Buttar talks about this, that there's this idea that these masks could hold bacteria, and you're not getting the proper outtake and intake of air, and it could house bacteria and create an upper respiratory infection, especially if the masks are reused and not cleaned. So, but I think that to answer your question, I think it's primarily not to create too much fear. And when they're on TV, they're talking. So if they're talking, it's hard for them to have that mask on, and they're already in a kind of a clean environment already. They have everyone that's in that room is socially distanced. If you look at the individuals that are asking questions from the press corps, they're more than 6 feet apart. Usually at the table, whoever's speaking at the table, they're 6 to 10 feet apart. So they're doing some degree of social distancing, but I'm trying to make and I brought this up in Stefan's show, is that nature is more robust than we anticipated, meaning that they create this virus that's a weapon, right? But in chaos theory, we realize that there's unexpected things that happen. Sometimes the unexpected is very negative, and sometimes it's very positive. But this unexpected thing, we call an externality. That's the fancy word for it. But the externality, this positive externality, is that nature is more robust, and that with the shelter in place, that we have hopefully brought this thing to a controllable level, and we bought time for the hospitals to have enough equipment just in case there is a larger wave later in the future, like October. October is a major milestone. We're not out of the woods yet, but that doesn't mean that we can. We're not out of the woods yet, but at least the hospitals are staffed up with the equipment that if there is a big wave that happens in October, that they're ready. And we've learned stuff. We learned a little bit about the physiology of this, the pathology of this.
Are you opposed to the vaccine or for it?
I'm absolutely opposed to it. I'm absolutely opposed. I'm opposed to it for multiple reasons. One, it's a messenger RNA platform that does not have long-term testing. It's a new type of platform. Two, we're being told through Operation Warp Speed that Trump is making this vaccine quicker than ever. Well, that means that you're not doing proper testing for clinical trials 1, 2, and 3. Well, you can't speed the clinical trials. I mean, 18 months is you can speed up the manufacturing, but you can't speed up the clinical trial. And you need time to see what sort of things manifest itself. And
I actually think I had it in November. I'm in Buffalo, and there was a wave. And I think that the description that they had, it was a fever for 2 days, and then your chest, and then it was about a total of 8 days I didn't feel well. So I do believe I already had it. And do you think there's another wave out there that I should worry about, or you don't know?
well, we don't know. We don't know. And there's a combination of things. I did a video, and maybe some people haven't fully watched it, or wasn't paying attention. But there is you have the primary, secondary, and tertiary waves that are possible. We don't know. And in between those main waves may be what I call primary dot 1, primary dot 2, and then you might have the secondary wave. So, so you might have little mini waves of reinfection before you have the secondary wave when we get out of shelter in place. So like for New York, when we get out of shelter in place and people start going back to work, we'll probably see a little uptick of infection. It's probably not going to be major, but it'll probably be a little bit of an uptick, and there are going to be higher hospitalizations, a little bit. The last I looked, we were under 300 deaths per day.
Fearful, because that does get us sick, and we do have to get back out there and work. And
right.
I don't know how we do it, but
we
have
to
change some things.
Well, no, I mean we have to go back to work because we can't let the economy get destroyed. Secondly, we have to go back to work because we can't lose our homes and our and our well-being. And we have to take a risk. Exactly. We have to take risks. That's the American spirit. We have to take risks. And and by taking risks, but being smart with it, and the medical community is now learning a little bit more about the pathology of this, that we can manage this without having a vaccine. And we need, as a people, we need to stand up and go back to work, make sure we tell our representatives and our governors, especially the governors, that we are not taking that vaccine, and we are going back to work, and we're not going to have decashing. We're not going to let them take this as an opportunity for them to roll in Agenda 21. Period.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm on the same page. So
you're feeling better?
Sorry?
You're feeling better? You don't have...
Yeah, that was back in November when I had it. I feel better. I mean, I think that a lot of this confusion and, it's not helpful. And wearing a mask going out, I don't like it. I feel like I live in a third world country.
Right. Well, here's the big point, and I didn't really realize it until I had to help someone in suburbia. I live in New York City, so New York City is a little unique. We have a lot of population density. We live vertically. It's not like suburbia. People in suburbia, they don't have the same risk factors as, let's say, Boston or New York. So it should not be a cookie cutter approach across the country. And I think we've managed pretty good to try to slow down the spread of SARS-CoV-2 in New York to a point where it's time to go back to work. And the far majority of the country, it's time to go back to work and make sure that we support our local businesses. We go to those local stores and we buy from them because they are hurting big time. They don't have capital, and we all need to pitch in and help our local businesses. And we have to help those local, restaurants, because they are hurting big time.
Right. I agree. I definitely appreciate listening to you and all your hard work.
Thank you very much for calling.
No problem. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Paul speaking.
Hey, Paul, this is Mitch. I'm in North Carolina.
Hi, Mitch. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Great.
Let me give you a call. Have you seen Brian from High Impact? The guy I'm talking about on YouTube?
Brian High Impact?
Yeah, High Impact.
High Impact?
High Impact Flicks. He's longer hair, ponytail, beard.
Maybe I've seen one or two of his videos. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it once.
Maybe.
Anyway, he's got something about HR 428, I believe is the number, the COVID stimulus package that the House passed.
A couple weeks back, or the recent one?
Day before yesterday, I believe.
Okay, all right. This is the second one, the second stimulus package.
Yeah, and it was HR 428, I believe.
Okay.
And anyway, he researched HR 428. The flu came out in February. It was announced in February. The package got signed by the president in March. But then he went and researched the bill, and the bill was introduced in January of 2019, a year before the virus was even known.
But what was in the bill, though? What was like the main feature of the bill?
That's the stimulus package for all this COVID-19 money that's being passed out for small business.
And they were predicting. So you're saying that they had it already written and they predicted that this fallout?
Yeah, that's what it appears. I don't know if you knew about this.
No, I haven't had time to dive into the details of the latest stimulus bill.
Yeah. Now, he came on later, the following day, and sort of retracted his research because somebody told him that it was possible to introduce a bill. Then they discuss it. They, talk about it a lot before it's actually put it into a final form as a bill, and then the president signs it. He says sometimes they just sort of start their discussions about a bill, and it never goes anywhere, but they keep the same number, HR 428, and just attach it to the next idea that they want to put in front of the president to sign. So I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's a normal.
Well, there's definitely bills that kind of go dormant and then they resurface.
Yeah, well, this one had the same number as the when they introduced it in January of 2019. It was the same number as the one that the president signed for the COVID stimulus package. So it's the same number, HR 428, I believe it was. It's the same number of bill. Whether it was a totally different bill or not, how it evolved, I don't know. I don't know how they operate in D.C.
I don't think anybody knows how they operate in D.C. No kidding, man. There's definitely you could see even on the first stimulus bill where they were trying to push the decashing and then it failed. You could tell that there was a plan, that they were waiting for an opportunity to push the decashing.
Yeah. Well, if it's true, if this is the same stuff they were talking about on 2019, and if it was COVID, a bill, anything to do with it, it's sort of a smoking gun. I think it's sort of important that we figure out the provenance of that.
Do we know who
bill.
the sponsors are?
I don't know. It's a House Bill 428, so we can look that up and find out. I don't know. I'm not D.C. I got out of D.C. because I couldn't take it anymore. I'm down here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I went to the grocery store tonight, and I had my Guy Fawkes mask on, you know, the
Right.
anonymous.
Right.
I had a blue face mask over the Guy Fawkes mask.
That's hilarious.
Just and on the mask, I wrote "scam" in big letters.
Right.
So I was walking around the grocery store, made my groceries. I wasn't there long. I only picked up milk and a couple other items, and people were looking at me, and I'm like, you know, I got my mask on. They don't know what I'm emoting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm putting stuff in my little grocery cart. By the time I got to the cash out line, there were 3 police cars out in front of the grocery store. Somebody had called, made a complaint.
Unbelievable.
And there were three cop cars in front of the grocery store because, you know, probably somebody was afraid. I had a blue face mask over the Guy Fawkes mask. So you'd have to be a complete moron to
Well,
think that was...
You know what's interesting is in New York, you can't even wear one of those Guy Fawkes masks. They had like a city ordinance law passed right after Occupy.
Is that right?
Yep. They can ticket you for having it. So, you know,
Wow.
yeah, it's ridiculous. We're living in a totalitarian, you know, regime now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Is it's like, as I was mentioning, I think it was with the previous caller, maybe before she called. You know, I was helping someone in suburbia. I live in New York City, and my perspective the last 8 weeks has been like the New York City perspective, which is pretty extreme. All right. And when I realized out in Queens, where it was a little bit more suburban, this is in Little Neck area.
Yeah.
But in Little Neck, so it's like suburbia. Everyone has their own little home, and you know they park their car in front of their house and all that. And there is just no way that it's going to spread in those communities. I do see possible spread early on with some of the workplaces and with the schools. But it's time now to go back. It's time to go back to work. It's time to go back to school. And it's time to take risks. And yes, there will be some infection. And for some people, it will be serious. But we have to move forward and not let people use this as their reason to erode our civil liberties and force this vaccine program.
I totally agree. We got to get out there. Risk getting the flu. I've had this on November 15th. I went to the hospital twice to see if I could get a antibody test. No, unless you have symptoms right now, they wouldn't let me in the ER building. There's a tent outside to quarantine people, and there was nobody in it. There was nothing going on. So I walked through the main entrance. I walked around it where HR was. It was dead. There's nothing. Nobody going. Nothing. So it doesn't seem to be.
But here's the thing: is that it's very real. It is a weapon. Like I said, that I think that the people that designed the weapon
must be very disappointed.
They're very disappointed because I think that they were expecting the acute phase to be much, much worse, and they didn't realize that nature was much more robust.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And but that's a good thing, and that's a tool in our toolbox to realize that, you know what, we don't have to be sheltered in place, and we can now get out and start protesting and say, you are not doing this forced vaccine on us, and we're not going to damage children. I mean, this is and Fauci needs to be investigated for his work that he did with that Fort Detrick weapons program and how he funded further gain of function with other labs in the world, including Wuhan P4 lab. And Fauci needs to be investigated, and if there's enough evidence, then he needs to be prosecuted.
Yeah, I totally agree. totally agree. I think it's time to get back to work. I would rather. I'm from I'm a Michigander. I think.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Michigan. Most of my life was in Livonia and Canton, Michigan.
Yeah, me too. I lived in Chelsea, West Ann Arbor.
Yep.
And
you there? I'm sorry. Someone called and I lost the. People that are calling, stop calling while I'm.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm the one that hit I was trying to, because I only have one line and everyone's calling in. I hit the wrong button and I canceled your call. I apologize.
That's okay. That's right. I just have two questions, really.
Yeah.
One is, I think it would be good for the people to go against this shutdown and just be like the Michiganders and drive around the Capitol. We had a march on the governor's mansion in Raleigh today, and that guy needs to start listening.
Yep.
I think we should just refuse to abide by their CACA rules. You know, in all Chesapeake Bay, you can't go sailing, you can't even go kayaking.
I know, isn't that crazy? I mean, how are you gonna get SARS-CoV-2 in the middle of a river or a lake? I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, these rules are absolutely asinine, and it's just time to get back to work. All right, and you know what they want to do is they want to destroy you so they can roll in socialism and give you a nanny state.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that it's real. I mean, to say that the virus isn't real, no, the science is showing that it is real. But the thing is that the acute phase was not as severe as what we were worried about, because we were dealing with an unknown, knowing that it was a bioweapon. All right, and that just being precautious was the prudent thing. But when now we have more data, points, and we know what to look for. Yeah. There are going to be some people that are going to get really, really sick and die, but the far majority are not. And we need to treat these individuals once they start getting the symptoms with these protease inhibitors, which I was stating that early on in February, that we got to hit them with the protease inhibitors really quick. And a lot of people are saying hit them with the vitamin C and hit them with the D3, and individuals that aren't sick and they're going back to work, they need to start boosting up their immune system. And you can do that easily by just going to your natural food store.
Yep. I got chaga. I got chaga. I got C60.
And it's time to go back to work, boost up your immune system, and fight for our Constitution. The next battle for us is not to fight the Wuhan virus. It's to fight the tyranny that they're trying to unleash on us by eroding our civil liberties and pushing that forced vaccine program by Fauci.
That seems to be a goal of theirs. I hear you, brother. Yeah.
So
I'll let you take some other calls. My last question is: it sure looks like it's it was weaponized.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I don't think it was an accident. I just can't believe it's an accident.
See, the thing is that so much proof, so much of the evidence has been erased or destroyed. It's never. I don't think we'll ever be able to prove that it was force leaked. We just don't know.
But I think we could connect the dots in an intelligent way where we would have some prime suspects. And I'm saying, well, who's the big winner off of this thing? And it appears to be the Federal Reserve Bank, and they were sort of on life support, as I, understand.
Well, I think the Federal Reserve is even in worse shape now.
Well, that's
because I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, if we play our cards right, the first step as citizens The first step is to make sure that those forced vaccines do not happen, and that our children are not
Subject to it.
subject to it, and you know, because a certain percentage of people will get some sort of vaccine damage. What that percentage is, I don't know, and how long it takes, I don't know. But a certain percentage will be harmed, and we're not, and we're not going to go down this road. And then on top of it, they can put in a Trojan horse later down the road with that messenger RNA platform, which I'm scared of. So I do not want that. You know, I do not want that vaccine. And you know, and then you know what is strange is that they'll force the vaccine on you, but they won't investigate Fauci and all the crazy stuff that happened with the weapons program. You know, but we have to after we protect our constitutional rights and making sure we don't get this forced vaccine and we don't have that decashing that I talk about in the BioPatriot Act. But we also have to make sure that the banks, that we have a movement where these large banks like Citibank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, they are trust busted. There needs to be a trust bust of these banks where they're smaller, so it's not as their economy is not as fragile, because every major calamity when it comes to the economy is rooted in those damn big banks.
You're right.
And you know, and just like how they broke up Standard Oil, you know, under Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, we need to do the same thing under Donald Trump and trust bust those banks.
Yeah.
The two things is to protect our country. We have to make sure that the BioPatriot Act doesn't happen, and that we trust bust the banks, the big banks, and we will have a better country down the road.
Absolutely, but 3 weeks ago there were no masks in the grocery store. Now it's 90%, if not forced to wear a mask.
Right.
So there's a whole
reason for
bunch
it.
of scared sheep out here that
Exactly.
they're gonna have to learn how to grow fangs pretty damn quick.
Yeah. But there will be some reinfection when we get back to work. There will be some. But the thing is that we can't take another $4 trillion hit. You know, there's over 30 million people. What, 40 million? I don't even know what the number is now. 40 million people that are unemployed now. I mean, it's like enough is enough. Americans know how to get things done, and we're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it smartly, but we're not gonna have this socialism and tyranny from the government. And we are gonna make sure that we find a way and save our Constitution. And we're not going to let these damn socialists take it. And you know, people like Cuomo, you know, in the state of New York, you know, pushing this check for the antibody, and if you don't have the antibody, then we're not going to let you go to work. That's all BS. And you know, the tracking mechanism with Bloomberg and all this. These people need to be called out in the social media, and we need to raise hell. It's time. This is our Boston Tea Party moment, and we need to save our Constitution.
It is. This is the last thing. If we fall, look at
the whole world falls.
The whole world falls. They have shut down Panama. You can't get a small boat through the canal anymore. All the islands everywhere. The whole world is shut down. This is a fantastic psyop that we got to stop this.
They didn't expect that the social media world was able, with different talents and with different ways of doing it, show the holes in their story. Either in the scientific way or the geopolitical way or the sovereignty way or the bills that they're passing. We all as citizens galvanized, used the technology that was at our hands, and we saw what the plan was. And we were able to slow down what they were trying to do, was which was a global 9/11. And we stopped it. We stopped it in its tracks. But we got to make we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep on going, and we have to protest on city halls, and say we are not going to have a Bio-Patriot Act. We are not going to have forced vaccines. And if you make it, we're not taking it, and you're not going to take our dollars and coins away. You're not going to turn us into a social scored society, and you're not going to do this surveillance technology with E7. This stuff is we are gonna take back our country, because if we don't, we're gonna lose our Constitution. And if push comes to shove, we'll have to go kinetic. But we are not going to be. I don't want anyone's child to be damaged from Fauci and this bullshit vaccine that he's producing.
I hear you.
And every woman out there that has a child, stand up and make sure that you tell your representatives that you don't want this. This is a danger. This is a danger. They're fast tracking it. They're not doing proper protocol testing. They're not even admitting what it really is, which is a bioweapon that they try to kill you. They try to weaponize AIDS, and and it's a blood disease. It's a neurological disease, and it's a pulmonary disease. We don't know, and the thing is, we don't know what the chronic phase of this is. But what's more important is not to stay at home and make sure that we're all a bunch of germaphobes. What's more important is to make sure we protect our Constitution, because that Constitution guarantees you the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It allows you to pray that the way you want to pray. It protects your religious freedoms.
I hear you. A lot of people out there think it's an outdated document.
No. These people that think it's an outdated document, they're revisionists. They want to, bring in, want to bring in their tyranny and socialism and communism and all that. No, that Constitution's worth dying for.
I think so. We may have to bring it to the point of getting that mad.
And I think enough people are starting to wake up and saying, hell no. This is our Boston Tea Party moment. If we don't stand right now and what they're doing to us, they're hurting our body, they're hurting our wealth, they're making us even weaker by us being in shelter in place for even longer than it needs to be. Yep. And then they're going to force vaccines on us, and we have no idea what that means long term. And they're going to fast track it? No.
I hear you.
It's not going to happen.
I appreciate your work on this. You and your buddy up there in Annapolis, Maryland, Dr. Buttar.
There's a lot of people that are out there. I mean, it's not just me. There's many people. Some of them are more famous. Some of them are semi-famous. Even the average Jane and Joe out there. We all have a part to play. And the thing is, we have to stand up and protect our Constitution and rise up to what that American flag really means, and that's unity. And we can make this happen. We will find a way to prevent the tyranny that they are trying to induce on us. We are not going to have that Bio-Patriot Act, and we are going to take back our country. Period.
Yeah. I'm with you. This is the most interesting time in my life.
And I'll tell you, it makes you smile and wake up in the morning saying, you know what? I'm doing something for my country and for the future generations. This is our moment. This is our moment in history. Let's not let this go to waste.
Yeah. Well, keep passing the word, and thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for calling.
Keep it up, man.
Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah.
Goodbye.
See you, Paul.
So it's Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Okay.
I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you in terms of the spike protein and kind of the structure of that. Because I've been hearing a lot. I've been listening to you talk about the furin and a few other people talking about the cleavage and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm fully understanding this, and I think a lot of people would benefit from knowing exactly, how this whole cleavage thing works, whether it's in the cell or extracellular, and what that means. I've heard you talk about how the 1,000 times as, or what is it, 1,000 times as virulent,
Right.
If furin cleaves it outside. I understand that as a concept, but I don't really understand exactly the mechanism as to what's going on.
Okay, so there's a few videos I have on my channel, and also a couple videos that are on George Webb's channel that go into a little bit more detail that people can keep on watching. The video I have is a little bit long-winded. There are snippets that have been published on my channel and George Webb's channel that kind of gives a cliff note of it, but I'll try to explain it. So basically, you have something called proteases. Proteases cut proteins. All right. When a protein is made, it's not necessarily active. All right. It has to be processed. So part of the processing is cutting it in a certain way and folding it. And when it's folded a certain way, the charges on the protein, some amino acids, there's amino acids in the protein, okay? It's a protein is made up of amino acids. Some amino acids are neutral, some of them are positive or negatively charged. So if it's folded in a certain way, it has a certain topology, it has a certain three-dimensional structure and a certain charge feature to it. So that topology and charge is what gives it the unique feature to gain function, to have affinity to certain receptors. So these polybasic cleavage points, or you could call it the furin cleavage point, is important because what that does is it allows for a gain of function folding of the spike protein. Now, if furin is upregulated, and usually you would upregulate proteases if you have a lot of protein that needs to be processed. If you have a high viral load in a cell, it'll upregulate furin. Well, if it's upregulated, it'll go up to the cell surface, and that can help cleave spike proteins that are already packaged on the virus to allow it to come into the cell. Sometimes when you have a spike protein, let's say, or an antigen, it won't want to get into the cell as easily, and it needs kind of like a little bit of help. Sometimes there are other receptors that are next to the main receptor that it connects to that are like little helpers.
Okay, does this have to do with like the S1 and the S2 part, or is that...
S1, no. So in that regard, the S1 and S2 are the subunits of the protein before it's cut. So you can so the protein's being processed. It's not cut yet. So there's an S1 and S2. It's cut at about the center point, roughly. All right, that's the that polybasic cleavage point, which the furin's cutting. And then what happens is that those two pieces are the S1, S2. They're just like geographical points that, for people to reference. If you're saying S1, then you're saying the front part of the protein. If you're saying S2, then you're talking about the left part, the back part of the protein.
So is S1, would that be like would you call that more of the tip of the spike protein, and S2 is like...
The more of the tail, yeah. You can view it that way.
Okay, so then
But it folds, though. So it's like a three-dimensional fold. But if you straightened it out, if you just straightened it out, the S1 would be in the front and the S2 would be in the back.
And when you say it folds, do you mean when it's constructed or when it's cleaved?
Well, this thing, when it's coating, there's going to be a natural three-dimensional shape.
Right.
But then it's cut, and then it's folded into a new three-dimensional shape.
And it's cut by okay.
And it's cut by the furin.
Okay, and then, so if the original protein before it's cleaved has this certain affinity for our receptors, with the cleavage, by changing the shape and folding it, what does that do in terms of the same receptors that it's trying to get into? Because I would imagine that if it's cleaving it and making a different shape, then maybe that wouldn't want to get into our receptors as easily.
That's right. You're right. And this is the point. This is that if there is some sort of mutation that takes place, this is how attenuation happens. If there is a mutation in its genome and it's coding for different amino acids for that, somewhere in that spike protein, and there's enough of a mutation, it may change the charge or the topology in such a way that it may not want to get into the ACE2 receptor very well.
Right.
But the problem is that if there's a lot of receptors, then mutation may lead to new gain of function with another receptor. So you may lose affinity on one receptor and gain affinity on another. So that's what I call the pinballing effect. So you lose, but you're right that if you have mutation and something happens where that cleavage point isn't as good, and that or something else on the protein changes, then it won't perform as well. Now on that protein, the cleavage point, it helps with the folding, but there are different areas on this protein that are kind of like high docking points to the receptor that aren't part of the cleavage point. So you could have mutations on the cleavage point that might affect the affinity, or you might have mutations that are at the docking areas of the protein that affect the affinity. So, and this is part of the reason why attenuation usually happens in a virus. As it's going through the population, it eventually weakens because it doesn't have a really good replication and proofreading mechanism. Like in our cells, we have a proofreading mechanism, but when that proofreading mechanism doesn't work, that's when we start getting the cancers.
I was watching a really interesting video. I don't remember who it was by. It was a female professor from some university doing an introductory course on coronaviruses. Very, very fascinating, all from the the molecular biology angle. And she was talking about these NSP proteins that make up the replicase. And I believe she was saying that the mathematical models for the possible length of a genome that would be stable, given the tendency for things to mutate, if it's too big, I guess it would, not be able to exist. They found that this coronavirus, and maybe I don't have this 100% correct, so it'd be worth double checking, but it seemed to exceed that limit, along with a few other ones that have this special replicase that they believe might have some proofreading mechanism. Do you know anything about that?
I would have to look into it. I mean, normally when you have a proofreading mechanism, you have other proteins that are coming in. It's not just the replicase section of the genome. I mean, there's in humans, there's an MLH and a MSH. Is it MLH and MSH? But there's multiple, at least in our cells, there are multiple proteins that work together. They're called dimers. So there's like two proteins that are produced. They connect and they help with the proofreading mechanism. But I don't know of any research that has shown that there is some sort of proofreading mechanism in the genome for SARS-CoV-2. But there is a substantial amount of added nucleotides to the genome for the replicase. So what they did was they took the best of both worlds. They took SARS-like coronavirus and SARS coronavirus. SARS was really good with the spike protein,
Right.
and bat SARS-like was really good at replication. So they supercharged it with that, plus the HIV homology that gave you the better polybasic cleavage point for the furin, and that gave it the gain of function for higher affinity ACE2 receptors, and other receptors like the CD147. So I don't think I have a hard time believing that there is a proofreading mechanism within the genome.
I don't know.
It's a 30,000. It is a 30,000 nucleotide genome.
Yeah.
I think HIV is like I would have to look it up, but I'm going from memory. I think it's around 10,000.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 times the size.
Yeah.
So
I
who
don't know the exact thing that she was saying, but it was along the lines that it was beyond a point which would be statistically determined to be not possible if there wasn't another mechanism. I'm sure it's not the same as what we'd be using.
But the thing is that there are replicases that are about that size for number of nucleotides within the genome to be in bat SARS-like that doesn't have a proofreading mechanism. So if you just look at the area of the genome for SARS-CoV-2 that just codes for the replicase,
right,
it's about the size of bat SARS-like.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like there is like another 2,000 nucleotides on top of that just for the replicase. So I don't believe, and I don't think that there's any proofreading mechanism for replicating the RNA within the cytoplasm. All those proofreading proteins are usually in the nucleus in human cells. So I don't think that the proteins are transporting out of the nucleus. There is something called NESs and NL. I think it's NLSs. Well, basically what they are is that there are proteins within the nucleus and in the cytoplasm. They're called carriers. So sometimes when there is a protein, you can have a carrier and it'll lead the protein back into the nucleus or feed a protein outside the nucleus. But I don't think that I don't believe that there are carrier proteins that will move the proofreading proteins that are in our nucleus outside to the cytoplasm to allow for proofreading for the virus. I don't think that's happening. I really don't think that's happening.
I don't know, whether it be proofreading or something that maybe is more minor.
I don't think there's a carrier mechanism to get our natural proofreading proteins to help the virus, nor do I think that the genome is large enough for it to have a proofreading mechanism.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was just curious to ask you about those couple of things. So, your time. I appreciate everything that you've been doing. I've been following you, watching a lot of your videos, and I really do mean that. I appreciate the work that you've done.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Later. Bye-bye. Dr. Paul speaking.
Hey, Dr. Paul. What's up, Doc?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Hey, first off, before I want to talk about what I want to talk about, how's Dr. Pedersen? Do you have any updates from him?
Dr. Pedersen, yeah, I mean, I knew what happened before everyone else knew because, one of his business partners called me, all right? And he, what's happening is that they shut down his company because he, in the past, but he hasn't done it. He hasn't done it recently. But in the past, he has said that nano silver products, or his product, the alkaline silver products, kill pathogens, and the government doesn't like him saying that. So they basically confiscated his property, and his business, and he and the website was shut down, and they're they're going through the whole legal process here.
So he basically got a cease and desist. They didn't come and take him
No,
away.
he wasn't even. No. They didn't take him away. I mean, he wasn't jailed or anything. But his business is confiscated. So I mean, by the feds. So he can't produce product. His banks, his business bank accounts were seized and all that stuff. So, now they got lawyers and they're going to fight. Saying, hey, if you were following what was going on in mid-February, Alex Jones was given a cease and desist order, right? And so he made some sort of public statement, and during that period of time, Pedersen rebranded his product, and any video that was out there that was talking about some of the things that he was saying about SARS-CoV-2 or coronavirus were taken down, and places like myself refilmed talking about boosting the immune system. And the feds didn't give him a warning. They just shut him down. They gave Alex Jones a warning. Why that is, I don't know. That's kind of surprising to me, because Alex Jones just relabels it. Pedersen makes it. He has a laboratory that makes it. So, what, he didn't get a warning, and not only that, they rebranded all the advertising. They re-advertised everything from mid-February onward. But they were looking back, according to the story I heard, they were looking back to rebranding days, and said, we'll just shut you down, which is wrong. Because he was being proactive. He saw what the terrain was, and they were being proactive to meet the new regulatory oversight. So I personally think that they were just trying to bring down a laboratory to prevent people from buying nanosilver.
Is that where you get your supply as well?
I had 2 laboratories. I only have 1 now.
Okay. I have a dumb question for you. Okay, so we're talking about, how with any kind of virus, they go through a mutation, right? And sometimes it makes it less virulent and sometimes more virulent. Is there some way or the scientific community can help it along to mutate it, to make it less virulent? Do you know what I'm saying?
Wait, you're saying that, is there a way that the public can make it?
No.
Say that again.
The scientific, bioengineer it, so to speak, I guess.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, the best thing that we can do is find a way where we can block these proteases. My personal belief is that we block the proteases and prevent it from cleaving correctly. It's not going to fold the protein like we were talking on the previous call, and therefore the viral product isn't created and the virus starts to die off. I think a really good protease inhibitor is the answer. Now there are a couple proteases that we can inhibit. One is the 3CL protease that helps with the folding of the replicase. The other is the protease inhibitor for the furin that is helping with the spike protein folding. But if you inhibit the furin, you're going to have problems with other complications, because we need furin for our normal bodily function. So there's going to be a side effect to that. But there's a therapeutic that I think that's important to look into, And so things like remdesivir, I think, is part of the answer. These are inhibiting the viral load to buy us time to build up an antibody. So when the virus is in our body, we have that antibody to kill it. So I'm more for a therapeutic than a vaccine. I do not want a vaccine at all. But if someone does get it, I think these protease inhibitors are really important to slow down the infection, to buy time for the immune system to kick in before the virus overloads the body in the acute phase. Now, once the virus is out there, you can't just go and engineer something to try to counteract it, to have one virus kill it, to fight another virus. It doesn't really work that way. But
well, how does it mutate?
It
what makes it mutate?
Well, it mutates by just making mistakes through its replicase. When it's manufacturing its new RNA, it makes mistakes, and over time, because it's doing this so many times, it will create mutations, and through natural selection, it'll either gain function, or it will just peter out. And 90% of the time, viruses will just attenuate and peter out. But it's because viruses don't replicate very well. But they make a lot of it. They make a lot of product. That's the problem. And, so you get these cytokine storms, and, it takes a while, but eventually, and then you have a lot of different versions of it. Now, we're already hearing about 3 different versions out there. But if you can inhibit the replicase, then or disrupt the production, the production of the replicase, you will disrupt that actual production of the virus, the production of that RNA for making new virus. So you're sort of right. It's really trying to block that replicase. You can block it 2 ways. You can block the protease that makes the replicase, or you can have a drug that blocks the replicase once it's made. So let's say we couldn't block the protease with a drug. Then what we could do is have a drug that binds to and disrupts the actual replicase and prevents it from actually making virus. Or if it is connected to the replicase, like these drugs connect to it. It's like there's something called competitive or non-competitive inhibition. So if it's competitive, it means that the drug would go into the slot where the replicase would want to start to manufacture RNA. But if it was non-competitive, then what it could be is that it could attach to, let's say, a side of the replicase and change the shape of the replicase, and it's just enough where it wouldn't work, and it makes it non-functional. Or it changes the shape just enough where it makes so many mistakes that the virus, that the RNA of the virus is non-functional.
So when it does do a genetic mutation, how does that get out into the world? Someone gives it, is contagious, and they give it to somebody else while it's already, mutated in the system?
Yeah, so there's a mistake that's made in the replicase while it's making the RNA. It's packaged. The virus gets pushed out of the cell, and let's just say this person coughs, and that virus gets out into the wild, out of the body and into the wild, and someone breathes it in. So that mutation, let's say in position 3, the mutation was only in position 3 of the genome. So that person that breathed in that new mutated virus at position 3, it'll get into his cell and start to replicate. Now the thing is that when it starts to replicate, if the mutation is such that it doesn't have as good of affinity for new receptors as it's replicating, when it's spreading in the body for this new person, then what will happen is that the virus will start to die out because it's not connecting to the receptors.
So
But
can
if the
we do
vi-
something
but
like that? I mean, it just seems like we could do something to that effect.
But we would need a drug to make the replicase make more mistakes.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to ask you too. Do you know anybody personally that's ever died of the flu?
Have I ever known someone that has died from
Well,
the flu?
Trump
No,
mentioned
honestly, I have never known anyone that
Neither
has
have
died.
we.
Wait, hold on, let me finish. I have not known anyone that has died from the flu, but I have known people that have died from COVID-19.
Right. But they were pushing all this, you got to get your flu shot. 30 to 80,000 die of the flu every year. And when President Trump mentioned that at the town hall, we looked at each other and said, you know what? We're pretty dang old, my husband and I, and we haven't met anybody that's died of the flu. So I went to the CDC website and I looked at how they determine flu death rates and flu, how many have the flu that year. They use this thing called fluserve.net. Have you ever heard of this group? It's calculated.
No.
These aren't real numbers either. When they're saying this many deaths, it's not actual death certificates they're going off of. This is a calculated, modeled number, and it's right there on the CDC website.
Right.
So that's why they push this
Right.
flu vaccine with all these deaths.
It's all about money. It's all about it's like an annuity. They want us to be like a paid subscriber. That every flu season, we're getting the flu shot. And and it's money for the the big pharma, and they want
Exactly.
they want you to be a germaphobe, so you're getting a shot for everything, and not every disease needs to have a vaccine for it. And if anything, I bet people will prove later down the road that if you have too many vaccines, that it's probably really, 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 really bad for your body, and that you just need that natural process of developing natural antibodies instead of being forced to produce antibodies through these vaccines. And there's a lot of garbage in these vaccines. There's a lot of, there's adjuvants in it to force the infection to get the pro-inflammatory response to create the antibody, because most of these vaccines would not work if they didn't have these pro-inflammatory chemicals in it, and they have a lot of preservatives in it because they has to be on a shelf, and to prevent things from coalescing and clumping together.
Yeah, I had to get a shot one year when I worked for a hospital, and I was able to call ahead and order something without a preservative in it because I was terrified. That was the 1 year I got a flu shot, and I was terrified. And I was able to get a fresh shot or something without any preservatives in it. It cost more. It was a single shot, not like 8 on a thing or whatever. I don't know how it works. You probably know better. Definitely know better than me. But yeah, I hate vaccinations. I hate shots. And when I saw what they had on the CDC, and here they're pushing that flu shot year after year after year, and all those numbers are not even real numbers. It's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
So I know you guys have a lot of callers, so I'm going to let you go and grab some more. So thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Paul speaking.
Hey, Dr. Paul.
How you doing?
Hi, I'm Carol from New Jersey.
Hi. So you're around the corner.
I am, yeah.
So how you doing?
I wanted to thank you for all your hard work. I have so many friends that love you. We listen to you every day. I don't know how we would have made it without you. When you're not on one day, we just panic.
You worried that I get Pedersen.
Censored.
Censored Pedersen.
Oh, yeah. But I just want to thank you, and I have one statement and one question. I agree with you with the way this pinballs back and forth, because I've been personally dealing with some immune problems since this whole started in my hands. I don't know if it has anything to do with something technological like 5G or whatever, but my hands are swollen and they tingle, and I don't understand that. So, maybe it's part of the virus.
What you said, tingling in your hands?
Tingling in my fingers and
Yeah,
swelling.
what's interesting is that some of my master's work in biology has been focused on peripheral nervous system disorders that are caused by pathogens. And what is really interesting is that when we develop antibodies, sometimes those antibodies actually start attacking the peripheral nervous system, the myelin sheath around them. And sometimes it's just temporary, and sometimes it's more permanent. Now, that's one mechanism. Another is that there may be toxins that are created from certain types of, usually it's bacteria. It's a bacteria usually, where it may create a toxin that causes some sort of peripheral nervous system disorder. But with viruses, you don't have that. You don't have that cytotoxin kind of thing going on. But in terms of the virus, we do know, the SARS-CoV-2, that it has peripheral nervous system clinical presentations. And one of the signs is tingling in the fingers, the toes, and all that. So, but it's not for everybody. It doesn't happen to everybody.
Right. Because everyone has different symptoms of this.
Right. So it sounds like, I mean, that could be anything, though. I mean, you could have been exposed to a different type of virus that caused the tingling. Was there some sort of pulmonary problem also?
No, nothing. I have nothing. I've also been home and on the devices a lot, so I don't know if it has anything to do with all this talk about the 5G.
Well, let's not say we use the word E7 because of the censor.
I'm sorry. Okay. The other statement the question I had for you was, with patient 0, I wanted to ask you, how did this infiltrate that first person?
With patient 0, how did it infiltrate the first person?
Right. Initially, someone had to get this, right?
My theory on this is that the patient 0 was actually a lab worker at the P4 lab, and that they were handling primates for testing, and that there was some sort of biological spill or biological transfer between the primate and the researcher.
So they would have contacted it through an open cut, or
it could have. It could have been that they could have been bit. It could have been that they breathed it in. It could have been that the monkey spit on them. Who knows?
Okay.
They may not have had the proper gear on for a P4 situation. Who knows? But I personally think it was the patient 0 was in the lab.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for all you do, and we look forward to, my friends, look forward to seeing you every day, and all your other shows that you're involved in. We try to.
Did you have a chance to watch the Stefan's show tonight?
I did, and I think your other friend was on, Andy. Not Andy. I just downloaded that onto my page.
Addie,
right, when you had the round table, right. Mm-hmm. That was very interesting how that went out.
I mean, I honestly think that was the worst roundtable I've ever been on. I mean,
felt bad.
here, the thing is that the concept of the roundtable was a good concept, but what has happened is it turned into WWF wrestling, and it's not functional anymore. I talked to Addy, behind the scenes, and I don't think he's going to have it anymore, the roundtable. But there's been a lot of things that have been said on the roundtable that are important for people to know.
Absolutely.
But I think it's going to morph into something different, and you see it on my channel with the war room, the coronavirus war room. I'm trying to bring on people from all different perspectives: a homeopathic perspective, the geopolitical perspective. Bring on callers, and so the whole war room concept, I think, is going to be the platform that I'm going to use to kind of to be the sound piece for this
No, I
going
understand
forward.
where you were coming from. You were very serious. You were just trying to get your point through. But I had seen Addy today. I actually didn't watch it. I downloaded it with a gentleman from CNN. So I had put that on my Facebook page also.
Yeah, it would be nice to actually have the CNN guy on my show, just to have a one-on-one. Sometimes I try to have one-on-one conversations. Sometimes I do panels. Sometimes I just talk by myself. They all had there's all a place for that. But I found the last round table to be too WWF wrestling, and I just wasn't as a product for people to look at in the future and understand what's going on. I don't think it was a very good product, and I think going forward we're just going to have to do a better job. What Addy did really, really, really well was the intro. If you look at the video intro that he did and the editing of that, I thought that was awesome, totally awesome. But everything went downhill after that. But it's just that it's just too WWF wrestling, and we need to elevate the conversation where it's not bickering at each other, and trying to take down other people, and I don't want to do that. One, it's just I don't have the energy. I mean, I'm a really busy guy, as you know. I'm doing a lot. Not just this show, but I mean, I'm doing all my schoolwork too, and it's not easy. Like for example, today and last night, like for example, last night I spent hours, reading different medical textbooks that I have to prep for medical school. And then I'm doing these shows, and I did a 2-hour show with Stefan, and I did I'm doing this, and I have to, I have to write my research paper that I have to present tomorrow, and I have a PowerPoint that I have to finish up. So I'm going to be doing a presentation on Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a peripheral nervous system disorder. So I got to do that presentation for my Harvard class. So I'm doing a lot, and I'm worn out. Some people comment that I am losing weight and all that, but it's because I'm going at 1,000 miles an hour. I've got a lot on my plate, but I'm getting to the point where I just don't have the energy, and I don't have the time to do WWF wrestling.
Oh, that's crazy. You were so flustered. I felt really bad for you.
Well, I'm trying to, as you've been watching for a while, the channel, right? I'm assuming.
2 months.
Yeah. So you've seen the channel evolve, and I'm going to the next level. What that next level is, I'm not really sure yet, but it's going to the next level.
Do you want to know how I initially found you? It's when this virus first hit, and something came up on my wall, my newsfeed, about Jason out there saying that when you guys had that little tiff.
No, so you're talking about my you're talking about the guy that's walking around New York.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said I have to find Highness, Dr. Paul Cottrell. So I didn't even know who you were. I didn't even know who he was. And then I found you.
Yeah.
And then I liked watching Jason because I love New York, and I liked when he, would go to Central Park and that. That's why I was putting that on, because I just love New York City.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I initially met you, was through that, your incident with Jason.
Right.
So
I don't like really talking about Jason, but
No,
but
I know.
the point is that he is doing a service. He is doing an important service, and that is, he's doing an important service on documenting the particular crisis in his own way. The problem is that he has a personality that rubs people the wrong way, and at least in my circle of people that I talk to that are very high profile, they have all had run-ins with Jason. All of them.
Well, you guys
And it's not just one. I'm talking like 5 different people. And they all have similar problems. There's a common theme, all right, with, and, it's just that he has a personality that is just not very conducive, and there's not a collegiate there's not a he's just like one of these types of people you just can't be friends with. It's just that his personality just rubs you wrong very, very quickly. So it's best to be. I want to be around people that give me positive energy. I'm listening to people that are giving me some advice behind the scenes, and they're saying, Paul, you gotta just focus on the positive and not so much on the negative.
Yeah, but he's a journalist and you're a doctor, so there's two different, it's like apples and oranges. But watching his show on, I believe it was Sunday, when he heard there was a protest going on by the courthouse, and how the governor or someone had stopped the protest and everyone left, and because that wasn't fair how they did that. And then Florida California got away with their protest.
Right.
So
the thing is that there's. Let's elevate the conversation a bit, not just for Jason, but journalists are important, but they also need to actually step up to the plate when there are problems that are happening. Where were the journalists when we invaded Iraq for the wrong reasons? Where were the journalists when Tower 7 fell and they didn't say anything about it? During 9/11, when it was pre-wired. Where were the journalists when all of these people that are coming out saying Fauci's got his hand in the weapons program? Where were the journalists, when there is this huge erosion of our civil liberties? So people that are going around either professionally, at the mainstream media level, they have a part to play as journalists to call off our representatives that are eroding our constitutional freedoms. Unfortunately, the ones that are at the very high level, like the CNNs, the Fox News, the MSNBCs, they're bought and paid for by corporate. And some of that money is coming from the CCP. So you can't trust them. And so the citizen journalists are trying to pick up the torch and to do the job, but you can't just have a selfie stick going around New York and filming and just saying what's happening. You have to step up to the plate and fight for the Constitution. And people like myself that are like putting their reputation on the line, I don't know what's going to happen to me when I go for a residency for my MD. There may be a lot of doctors that say, you know what, Paul, you're crazy. You're saying you're against the CCP. You're saying that you're against vaccine program that Fauci was, saying, and you were saying that it was a bioweapon. So we're not going to give you that general surgery residency. That's how much of a mistake that is. About a $400,000 mistake. Where was Jason? What sort of thing is he stepping up to the plate and sacrificing? There's a lot of people that are trying to protect our Constitution, and they're putting a reputation on the line to protect our Constitution. And that's what I mean by I need people on the battlefield with me to try to save our country. And maybe some people don't like my personality. That's okay, as long as we're fighting the same battle. And that battle is protecting our Constitution and protecting our children from forced vaccinations. You know, that is paramount. But journalists that just go out there to just try to grow a channel, that's bullshit. Because that's not protecting the Constitution, that's protecting their pocketbook. And what's more important is to protect our Constitution. Our Constitution is everything. It gives us the freedoms that we have.
That's right.
So, you know, it's just, you know, so I don't want to be fighting with people. I just want people to work together because we got people that have a lot of money are trying to take things away from us. They're trying to take away our Constitution. They're trying to take away our freedoms, and they're putting us into these little ghettos. They're trying to take our wealth away, and we're going to have less and less and less opportunity. It's time to take back our country, and all those citizen journalists out there that see the same thing I'm seeing, they have a platform. They have a part to play to save our Constitution. And just filming is not good enough. Just documenting it is not good enough. You have to act. You have to move. You have to get engaged and protect our Constitution. Just talking is not enough. Action is what is.
So what do you suggest we do as citizens?
We need to protest. We need a movement very similar to the Occupy movement. We need to say we are not gonna have a Bio-Patriot Act. We are not going to have decashing. We are not going to have forced vaccinations. We are not going to allow for this E7 to roll in for its surveillance technology and push a social scoring whereby we lose that ability to freely think and freely participate in this democracy. They want to control us with that E7 grid, you know, and surveil us. I mean, they're going to put us. Look at what's happening to China. They have the social scoring. If you do something against the government, what they do is they give you a bad social score, so you can't get credit, you can't get a job, you can't travel. They're trying to put us in that kind of grid. We need, as citizens.
But they're already there.
Yeah, no. But the thing is we as citizens can tear it down. We as citizens can rise up and state, no, we're not going to have this. We need an Occupy movement, Occupy America movement. We want our Constitution.
How can we do that if what happened in New York City Sunday, they sent everybody away in the protest and got away with it?
Not leave. It's a peaceful protest. It doesn't matter what the governor says. It's a peaceful protest.
And they can't arrest us?
No.
Okay, that's what they were
No,
saying.
but no. The problem is that you can't just do this with 50 people. You got to do this with hundreds or thousands. That's the Occupy movement. That's what happened in the Occupy movement was that there were hundreds or thousands of people. And you're talking about, that was just for the financial crisis. We're talking about things that can hurt our body and our children. This is the most sacred thing that we can do. That we have to save our Constitution. This is not some rhetoric. This is not about social engineering. This is about saving the Constitution. The most important thing we have in our country. Our lives mean nothing without that Constitution. If you want to freely practice your religion, it is guaranteed in that Constitution. So all those Christians out there, all those Jews, all those Muslims, anyone that wants to make sure that you have the right to practice your religion, you have to protect that Constitution.
So then maybe the churches shouldn't have shut down. All the churches in Jersey are shut down. Why
I think the churches should start rebooting. rebooting up again. The churches, we need to start to congregate again. The problem here is that the problem here early on was we didn't know what we were dealing with. We were dealing with a very big unknown. We have a better idea what we're doing now. We understand the pathology better. We understand the clinical presentations. We understand the epidemiological curves. We have somewhat of an understanding of the possibility of a second wave. We have already ramped up our hospitals with equipment and personnel. We cannot keep on living in fear. America is not about living in fear. America is about persevering. America is about exploring. America is about building. America is about saying, we can do this. Nothing's going to stop us. We will find a way. And living in a nanny state and living in fear is not being American. So I am begging my citizens out there, my fellow citizens, please step up, protect your Constitution, and to make sure that Constitution is there for our children and our children's children. Because if we don't, if we sit on the sidelines, these socialists are going to try to burn it down. Just like what Nancy Pelosi did right behind the back of Donald Trump when she tore up the speech, for the State of the Union address. Just imagine what that would have been if it was the Constitution. That's what they represent. That's what that crowd represents. I'm not saying all of the Democrats think that way, but there is a big section within the Democratic Party that want to push socialism into this country, and they want to erode this Constitution. And if we keep on doing this shelter in place, they're gonna take another $4 trillion out of our economy. Can we afford another 30 million Americans laid off? No, we can't. So we have to stand up and say no more. We're not going to go down this road. And if there is reinfection, we will find a way through science to prevent it. But we're not going down a forced vaccine route. We'll find a therapeutic.
Right.
I don't care if it costs, because think about it. If we had $4 trillion that were given to big pharma, don't you think we'd find a therapeutic to fight this virus? Yeah, we got enough money to figure it out. We don't need the forced vaccine. But we need to step up. We need to step up.
Start this? Like where, how, when?
Everywhere. It has to just go like wildfire. Everywhere.
How do you get people together? I can't even get people to sit on my lawn, never mind.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, because people are afraid to act. People are afraid to act. Well, you know what? You don't act, you're going to lose your Constitution, and you're going to be pushed with a bunch of vaccines that you don't want. Now, do you want to go down that road or not?
Hey, listen, Queen Esther said, if I perish, I perish. That's how I feel. At least if you go down for the right reasons, it's well worth it.
I think fighting for this Constitution is the most important thing that our generations can do for our country. We have lived high on the hog for so long. It's time for us to pay our debts. And our biggest debt to pay is to take the risk of protecting our Constitution. And we have to occupy America and tell these governors to fuck off.
True. All right, we'll get the ball rolling.
Well, I thank you for the call. I appreciate it. But, I just want to be before you go, though, I just want to make it very clear that all citizen journalists, even Jason, all journalists out there have a part to play. But with that said, though, it's not about just filming. It's about acting. There has to be action. These people that are just saying, I'm documenting it, that's bullshit. That's sidelining. You got to act. You got to use your platform, film what's going on, use your platform, and galvanize people to protect your Constitution, and also be on the front line doing it. You got to be on the front line in the battle to protect the Constitution, not these sideliners that are just filming for ratings on a YouTube channel. That's just
when you have thousands of subscribers. subscribers, you could do something worthwhile. You're right.
You know, everyone has a part to play, even if they only have two subscribers on their channel. You know, they have a phone, they can call the people, they have friends, they can do something, they can pass out flyers, they can sit in front of, you know, in front of their state house. But we got to tell these governors, enough is enough. You're not going to erode our civil liberties anymore. E7 is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Right. And this never-ending surveillance technology. Why doesn't the police have military-grade equipment? Why does the police have drones? That is totally unacceptable. Those are our hard-earned tax dollars that we no longer have. We don't have the money for this stuff. It'll take years to dig out of a $4 trillion hole in the economy. You know, we lost $4 trillion. We're not going to reboot our economy that quickly. It's not like you just turn on a switch. We got to fill the hole. It's going to take years to do that. We can do it. We're Americans. We can do it. But we're not going to let our government backstab us in the process.
People have to get angry enough. I have many family and friends that have businesses. My brother's got a barber shop, and he's lost to dip it into their savings account that they were using for retirement. Now it's all gone. So it's just really sad. People have to get angry enough to do something about it. I mean, we're too young. You know, people in their 50s and 60s they're using up their whole retirement savings account to get them through this.
Yep. And you know what's interesting is like I look at it from the perspective of Gen X, because I'm Gen X. You know, Gen X got hit with the dot-com bubble. Gen X got hit with 9/11. Gen X got hit with Lehman, and now Gen X gets hit with Wuhan. And each one of those was a devastating financial disruption in their wealth creation. All right? Gen X is getting fucking fed up with this shit. And I'm telling you, there is a hate, not just anger, a hate that is building in Gen X, because the government has been pushing so hard and eroding our wealth that it's time that we occupy America. And fight for this Constitution and say that this socialism is going to fucking end. And it's fucking ending this year. It's no more of this bullshit. But the citizens need to pick up what I'm saying and get out in the street and actually start occupying America and saying, no, we're not going to have this surveillance technology like E7, and we're not going to have the forced vaccines. We're not going to have the decashing so they can control our wealth. You know, we're not going to have the social scoring. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have technology. We should have technology, but we shouldn't have technology that's surveilling our citizens, and that sure as hell that the NYPD should not have military weapon grade equipment. Absolutely not. We already killed the bad guys. They're not going to come back and take down another tower. That's not going to happen. And the reason why they took down the tower was because fucking Cheney did a stand down and didn't blow the fucking things out of the sky. He let it happen. So Gen X is tired of this bullshit, and we want to take back our country. We want prosperity, but all the citizens of all generations, that's the millennials, that's the Gen Y, the Gen Xers, and the boomers. We all need to band together and not fight each other. And make sure that we protect that Constitution. Because if we don't, we're going to be living in fucking tyranny.
It'll be affecting their children.
Yeah.
The babies that are born now, what kind of life will they have? It's not going to be anything.
But the thing is like some people say in the chat box, E7 can be blocked. E7 technology allows for surveillance. It allows for it is a larger concept. It's a security grid. It's not just the cell phone technology. It's the ubiquitousness of the security grid that I'm talking about. It's the Internet of Things, and you can never opt out. Do you really want that? Do you really want that? And
Now, does E7 affect the other devices, laptops and computers, or is it just our phones?
no, it's going to be everything. I
So
mean, the Internet of Things is eventually. I mean, what Cisco is predicting, and also, also these consulting companies, they're predicting that the Internet of Things, every single device that you buy is going to be connected to the Internet. Your lamps, your lights, your even your bed will be connected to the Internet.
Great.
Like if you had like let's say a water bed that was heated, you would have it connected to the Internet, and then when you're at home or at work, you can set it. Well, I want the water bed to be heated at 5:30, so when I walk in the door and I lay down, it's nice and warm, that sort of thing. But they want to connect everything. Do we really need to have everything connected? And this is the unique perspective that Gen X has. The baby boomers primarily did not live with technology. They weren't born with it. All right.
They don't even know what an 8-track is.
Well, but the baby boomers didn't. They helped invent some of the technology, but they weren't born with it. Gen Xers, the personal computer for me was when I was in 5th grade. All right, so I remember as a young child not having computers, and I remember as a child having computers. So I remember what it was like to be outside playing, and not having a technological world. I remember when cable just came out, when they were wiring, the home with, cable. So Gen Xers have a certain perspective. We have a foot in the old, let's say the baby boom world, and a foot in the new, which is the Gen Y. Gen Y didn't know that. They've been born with technology. They were born with the CD. They don't know what a record is, right? And then the millennials, most of them don't even know what 9/11 is. They just read it in a book. They don't know. They don't have the visceral feeling of what 9/11 meant. All right. So this is the landscape we're dealing with for our citizens. So that's why I keep on saying, it is the anger of the Gen Xers that's going to lead this movement.
Right. That's right.
So.
We're mad as hell, and we ain't going to take it no more. We're taking back our country. I'm not going to let this Constitution get eroded by a bunch of, social liberal fucks. Could they arrest us for giving out flyers?
No. Why?
I have no idea.
Oh, because of the COVID-19 thing?
I'm just saying.
The thing is that once we get out of shelter in place, we have all the regions that are getting out of shelter in place need to start doing Occupy America. And there's a lot of components to Occupy America. Passing out flyers, talking to your friends and family, neighbors, going to your city halls, and talking about these sorts of issues, and how you want your communities to be run. Because if you don't, the powers that be are going to push this Bio-Patriot Act, the elements of it. It's not going to be packaged. It's not going to be packaged and wrapped up in a red ribbon. It's not going to be on a neon sign. They're going to do it in pieces while you're asleep, right, and you're not paying attention, while you're too busy on your other stuff. This is why we have to start occupying now. If we lose this opportunity, these globalists, these socialists, these communists, they're gonna roll back the great country that we have. Now, are we gonna let that happen? Do you want that to happen? I mean, I hopefully that the people are listening to me and all the other channels I'm on, and all the other channels that are speaking something very similar, step up to the plate, and these people that are listening, they step up to the plate and say, hey, we're not going to have this happen. Now, there's some people in this country that want the Constitution to be eroded. There's lots of people out there that want this mega socialism. But mega socialism is going to give you Venezuela. It's not going to give you prosperity. It's going to give you tyranny, and it's going to give you tyranny it's going to give you tyranny with technology. There's going to be a technological tyranny on top of it, and you're not going to have the opportunities, the financial opportunities that we've had in the past, unless we stand up and say we're going to occupy America, and we're not going to let these things happen.
Let's just hope when people get out that their basic need right now is to be with their families, to hug their grandchildren, to be with their children and go back to work. I hope that they still will think about this the portion that you're speaking about, and, not just a social issue of getting back with their families. People get preoccupied, like you said. They're just going to, be glad to get out of the house.
Well, that's true, and there's going to be a jubilation, once the country is back on its feet, and out of the home and can enjoy the sun. But the thing is that it don't get complacent. We cannot get complacent. We have to tell our representatives we are not going to have that vaccine. I don't care if it's wrapped in gold. They give you a gold brick, to take the vaccine. Don't take it, because they're cutting corners. You can't speed this through. It's brand new. It takes years to make, brand new types of vaccines. So,
Dr. Paul, the Christians are not going to take it.
I hope.
Jewish people are not going to take it. So, if it comes down, if the rubber meets the roads, maybe Christians will take it if they're that worried about it. But I know for myself, I would never take it. So, and I know the Jewish people I studied the Old Testament. I know that Jewish people cannot get marked or tattooed, so the Christians back you up.
This nation is full of great people from different nationalities, ethnicities, religious affiliations. This is a great country when we work together. Unfortunately, lately, the last several years, we've been divided. We've been put into boxes, either left or right, Republican or Democrat, bad or good. Well, no, we got to come together and fight the power.
I think churches need to step it up.
Yeah, I agree. It is unconstitutional to not be able to peacefully assemble. And they're trying to take that right away from you, and it's time. It is time. We've been patient. The country has been patient. We've been listening to, quote, the experts, and we've been patient. We've sheltered in place. I've probably sheltered in place more than most, all right, because of where we're at. You too, but the far majority of the country has not sheltered in place as much as I have. And I'm telling you, enough is enough. It is time to go back to work. It's time to go back to your churches or synagogues or mosques. It is time to start living your life. And if the government is telling you no, then they are infringing on your constitutional rights. And all those Juris Doctorates out there, all those lawyers, they need to start stepping up to the plate too. Because honestly, I don't think there's enough of the lawyers out there that are saying, hey, you know what? This is a major problem and we need to stand up for our Constitution.
True. And what happens if the second wave comes within a month?
If there's a second wave that comes, then for certain, it's not going to be a second wave for the whole country. In the area of a larger infection, there needs to be some sort of 14-day quarantine. But that doesn't mean that you shut down the whole country. We've learned from this, and we can work through it. But we don't go and shut down the whole country again and lose another $4 trillion and lay off another 30 million people. This country has to stand. And this is a war, all right? And some people are going to die in it. That's the facts. Some people will die from this. But I'm telling you, there is no one in this country, no one can say that their life is worth more than the Constitution. No one. Because if you're saying that your life is worth more than the Constitution, then you're a fucking asshole. Because that Constitution, it transcends life. It transcends generations. And it's up to us. This is our Pearl Harbor. This is our D-Day. This is where we need to just step up and storm the beach. Some are going to get hurt. But in the end, the Constitution is saved. And that is what's important here. Because if we don't do this, the government's going to roll in and they're going to start pushing that Bio-Patriot Act. We have to act now. Because if we don't act now, people are going to start getting complacent. They'll go back to their job and they don't really want to fight for the things that I'm talking about. And then eventually, 2 or 3 years later, you won't have cash and you'll have E7 and you'll have forced vaccines and you'll have all this other stuff that's going on. And, and then I'll say I told you so, but you don't have your Constitution anymore. And then it'll be too late because they already took your guns. The reason why you have guns is so you can protect the First Amendment. It's not to kill Bambi.
Well, we're going to stay tuned with you and follow your readings, and maybe you could lead us as we go.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only leader in this. I don't mind leading, but I'm not the only leader. It's going to take a series of people. Just like it took a series of founding fathers and founding sisters to give birth to our nation during the Revolution. It took a series of people. It's not one person. It's a group of people that have a common cause. But that's what the American spirit is. We're taking back our country. We're protecting our Constitution. And we're not going to run away and be a bunch of germaphobes. And the medical establishment, they're trying, and they're getting closer to finding treatments for this. And we'll get there. We'll get there. As citizens, we need to protect our Constitution. As scientists out there, we need to find treatments. But don't force this vaccine thing, because that thing is dangerous. It's dangerous for the long haul because they can Trojan horse something because it's a messenger RNA platform, or they're cutting corners and we have no idea what the long-term effects of that vaccine are.
Well, a lot of the doctors can step it up too, because I remember when this first started, I was studying about the blood types, and when I called my doctor about the issues with my hands, and I told her about what I read, she wasn't even aware.
Well, here's the thing is that doctors are overloaded with what's going on. That's one.
Absolutely.
That's one problem. That's what it's the scientific establishment is. It's a larger thing. It's not just doctors. It's not just clinicians. It's not just bench researchers and pharmaceutical companies. I mean, it's a whole community that has to work together to find this. But believe me, if they were given $4 trillion, they'd find it. They will find the answer. All right. But we just lost $4 trillion by shutting down the economy. We can't do this anymore. We got to protect our Constitution. We can't be a bunch of germaphobes. We need to move forward. And yes, people will get sick. Yes, people will die. All right? But it's not going to be as bad as we thought, because nature is more robust than we anticipated with this bioweapon. All right? We don't know what the long-term effects of the bioweapon are, but that doesn't mean that we run away. We're Americans. We hit it straight on. Don't run away. Because these citizens that are run away and they want to hide, and they're worried about their own life, I'm not really sure if you deserve the Constitution then. You deserve the civil liberties we have because you're not willing to fight for them. This is our moment in history. What we are seeing in 2020 right now, is our moment in history. When we read in history books on what certain generations did to have the country we have, this is our moment right now. Now, are we going to step up to the plate and do it or not? This is our moment, and it's time. You still there? Hopefully I didn't scare you.
I'm thinking.
Well, it starts with protesting. The game plan is what happened with the Occupy movement. But that was just on the financial side. You know what? It's now time to occupy America. We're taking back our country, and we're not going to let these fucking socialists ruin our Constitution. So everyone has to get out there and protect their Constitution. Some people are saying occupy the Constitution. No, it's occupy America. We're occupying America to take back our Constitution. We're protecting it. Yeah. But people need to just get out and start protesting peacefully. That's your constitutional right. And anyone that says otherwise is dead wrong. And all those Juris Doctorates out there, all those lawyers, you better start helping these citizens when they're on the front line, trying to protect their civil liberties. Step up to the plate and stop being a fucking pussy.
It's true. Yeah. We need some good leaders.
So, but let me take maybe one more call, and then I'm going to shut it down for the night.
Thank you.
All right.
Safe.
Yeah, you too. But get out and protest. Talk to your friends and family members. Protest.
We're gonna work on it. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'll take one more call, and then I'm going to shut it down for the night. Nobody wants to talk to me? Dr. Paul speaking.
Hey, Dr. Paul. This is Sean from Nebraska.
Hey, how you doing, Sean?
Good. How are you?
Okay. Doing okay with with the virus here? You're not sick or anything?
No, not sick.
That's good.
Our whole family was sick last December, and that was the thickest we've been in a long time, so I'm not sure if that was COVID or not. But
Well, you know what is that, I do have a lot of calls or people that have sent me emails stating that they were getting sick in November and December. And it had like two waves to it.
yeah, I think they said the Midwest was hit hardest with the flu, but we didn't get tested. We were just down for like a week. Whole family.
See, I had my brother. He was sick in December, and he had like this cough that wouldn't go away for about 4 weeks. It eventually cleared up, but it sounded like he was coughing up a lung. But this was in December. It lasted for most of the month.
Yeah. I'm not good with. I watch a lot of your videos, but I'm not good with. So the information comes into me, and I'm not good like getting it out to people. So I talk to a lot of people about your videos and everything, and even my wife and my brother, and everybody's like, "Oh well, that's, I don't know why you're listening to somebody on the internet. Where are they getting their facts from? So, I guess one question is, so I can be more prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hear you talk about Fauci and all that. Where is there somewhere I could look to get these facts?
Well, yeah, definitely. So there's a mosaic. There's a mosaic that that I'll point you to. So on my website, it's called the-studio-reykjavik.com, but it's in the description box. You can just click it. And I have a section called medicine, and I have a ton of PDFs. Those are the scientific research that ties certain researchers to the weapons program. And some of the research there also kind of debunks some of the claims that it's zoonotic, all right? And if you correlate those research papers to some of the videos that I've been talking about, then you will have a better idea on the scientific side. Now, respect to Fauci, here, let me give you a cliff note on how to follow this. There's a paper on my website that was published in 2008. That 2008 paper showed the early gain of function with the HIV in 2008. Okay, to be able to jump species to the human ACE2 receptor. Dr. Ping Zhao and Dr. Shi are both on that paper. Dr. Shi is the doctor that's in the news called Batwoman, all right, or Bat Lady. She is on that paper, and she worked at the University of North Carolina. North Carolina researchers and Fort Detrick were working on a weapons program. It was shut down in 2014 by Obama. This is all public knowledge, all right?
Okay.
So I would point you to George Webb and his YouTube site that will give you in-depth knowledge of that particular bunch of data. Burks is involved and Redfield's involved, all right? So, and a lot of other players. But from there, Batwoman leaves when they close the weapons program. She goes to P4, and she's running the P4 lab, or is one of the researchers at the P4 lab. All right, and she's publishing papers out of there. So you can follow the publications from that. Some of it's on my website. Some of it's just other publications that you can find on other YouTube channels. But you just type in her. You can go on the website and you can go on the internet and just go into like PubMed and start looking for publications from Dr. Shi. I can't remember the full Chinese name, but it's on the research papers, and you can take a look at it and you can follow the research and you can see the homology and how they were slowly building it up. Now, in terms of Fauci being involved, the records are being requested by what's that agency that I can't remember the agency, American something, where they ask for freedom of information, the Freedom of Information Act. But there's a nonprofit group that's actually Judicial Watch. That's right, Judicial Watch, where they're requesting information about Fauci and what did he know and how did he do the funding and all this stuff. So they're trying to get the public records, but he was running a department within the NIH, and there's a disease department under the NIH that he was running, and he had funds that were able to appropriate, and he funded more than $3 million. Depending on the article you read, it may be as much as $6 million, but more than $3 million worth of funding for gaining new function with this virus. And he helped fund the P4 lab. So some of this is public information that you can track. But in terms of the Fauci connection, your best place to go is George Webb's YouTube, and just listen to his videos, and he's got links in his description that will walk you through it. If you listen to his like latest, maybe I would listen to like the last 2 weeks worth of videos that he's created. I think he'll give you a really deep understanding of the characters at play here.
Okay.
But this is not conspiracy theory. This happened, and anyone that wants to think that, well, I don't believe it, is all bullshit. You know, they got their head up, they got their head in the sand, and they're just not wanting to listen to people. I mean, George Webb's been researching this for a long time. All right, and this thing is serious. All right, but what's also serious is they're trying to erode our civil liberties, which in my opinion is more deadly than the virus. So, you know, we need to get educated, that's for sure, but we also have to act, and we have to protect that Constitution.
Yeah, my grandpa, he was a survivor of the World War II Death Baton March. And so, you know, I don't know, I'm 43 now. I wish I would have had more time, you know, because I was younger. I wish I had more time to actually, I wish I was older to, you know, I was a kid, so I didn't care back then. But, you know, now looking back, I wish I would have talked to him more about it. But I was just telling my wife today, like, so I live in Nebraska, and the governor set up a hotline. They want you to take pictures and call if you see somebody not doing social distancing, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like the Gestapo. Yeah, I mean that's what they did in Nazi Germany. I mean, I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying is that we are not. These socialists are. I mean, these people are turning into fascists. Just flat out fascists. You know, and we got to stop it. I find it unacceptable because of my own, you know, family history. You know, it is unacceptable to allow for fascism to take place, and we have to stop it. You know, and you know, people that are doing this, why are they doing it? Because they're germaphobes? Because they want to toe the line of the government? What are they trying to prove? That they're quote good citizens? I mean, 1984, Orwell, you know, was warning us against this type of stuff. We have to band together as citizens to fight the power. It's when they divide us where they have power. It's we the people. The Constitution says we the people. It doesn't say we the government.
Yeah, so every time I try to tell people certain things, they're like, well, who's trying to control everything? Like, what would be the point?
What would be the point? Well, they're trying to integrate all of the countries into a one world government. The point is this is supreme control. Supreme control. It's the banking cartel. Look at what happened look at what happened in Brussels with the EU. Huge corruption. When you start consolidating power, there's huge chances for corruption. And so the people that are in power are going to be able to be on the take and get, you know, and gain more money. So that's the big game plan. Is whoever is in power during this world integration is going to be gaining a lot of income, and that's the game. That's the reason. The people that are moving this forward are it's all about a power trip. It's a power and money grab.
Yeah. Do you think the numbers are skewed?
Is the number skewed? I don't understand what you mean.
So, like, I don't know if this is real or if this is just like a joke. So, like, somebody has cancer and they have 6 months to live and they die,
Yeah.
but they test positive for COVID, they're still listed as COVID death, even though they were going to die.
Well, there isn't, you got to look at the details. The devil is in the details, okay? Even though, this is the episode with the angel of death. So I'm going to give you the details, all right? The devil's in the details. Are the numbers skewed? Yes. But are the numbers skewed on purpose, or are they skewed for purposeful reasons, for valid reasons? It's a yes and a no to that question, all right? There's valid reasons and there's invalid reasons, all right? Let's dive into the detail here. It is skewed. Now, if a part of the reason why they're skewing the numbers is the hospitals have lost a lot of income because they don't have procedures that they normally do that are non-essential. They're losing tons of money. So they get federal funding if they have more COVID-19 cases to try to fill the hole from all those non-essential procedures. Okay? So that's one reason why they do it. The other reason that they do it is that if you are, let's say you have a comorbidity and you end up getting COVID-19 disease and it speeds up your death, did you die from COVID-19 or did you die from the comorbidity? I personally believe you died from COVID-19 because it sped up your death. I don't believe you died from, let's say you had heart disease, or to a point where it was near heart failure. But you could squeeze out another 3 years. But you get COVID-19 and it causes such a breathing problem that your heart can't take it anymore and it gives out. All right? Did you die from heart failure? Yes. But your heart failure was exacerbated because of COVID-19 disease. So I don't think it's wrong to put COVID-19 in that case. I do think it's wrong for someone that had a car accident and they happen to have COVID-19, that they died from COVID-19. No, they didn't die from COVID-19, they died from the car accident. So it depends on the situation, and there are people that are gaming the system so the hospitals get more money for the COVID-19 cases. That's one reason. The other is that the government wants to show the numbers to be higher for fear factor. But to say that all comorbidities should not be classified as COVID-19 deaths when they have COVID-19, that's totally wrong. You should state COVID-19 on a comorbidity case because it accelerated the COVID-19 disease accelerated the death. So I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong. So the devil is in the details. It's not as simple. Everything about this, my friend, everything about this cannot be in black or white. There's a big gray area that people need to look at the detail. Because that's how they divide us. They divide us by saying, oh, it's either fake or it's not fake. It's a COVID-19 disease, they're faking the numbers with the COVID-19 or they're not faking the numbers. No, some of it is being faked and some of it's not being faked. That's the point I'm making. You got to look at the details. Don't get fooled, because that's how they divide us. They divide us by thinking, in a very binary way.
Yeah, all I know is you should probably invest in Keystone Light stock, because since I've been staying home, I've been drinking a lot more. No,
well, for me, it's really Guinness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Guinness.
I've been working, but there's a lot of I feel bad for my wife. I mean, so she's working from home, and I'm a 5 and 7-year-old, and now she's got to do her job, try to do school, and try to keep from them two fighting. both girls, so it's tough for her. But
Well, you know, that's another thing that's part of the problem here. It's not just the financial; it's the emotional. There's a psychological component to this it's very serious, and it needs to be addressed. And you know, us being locked up and sheltered in place is actually weakening our immune system. So when we do get out of shelter in place, we're going to actually have a little bit of a weakened immune system to fight anything that's out there. But you know, we're Americans. We're going to persevere. We're going to storm the beach, and we're going to win. But we have to do it together. All those Marines, and you know, that stormed the beach. They had to do it all together. They didn't do it one by one, because if they did it one by one, they would all die. They had to all storm together. That's what's happening here. We are powerful in the numbers, but if we just do 50 person, you know, protests around the country, that's not enough. You have to be in the hundreds or thousands in all different localities. I'm not talking about a 1 million man march, 1 million person march in Washington, D.C. I want thousands of marches across the country. That's what's going to raise the alarm and say, you're not going to force vaccinate us.
Well, that was another thing I was going to ask you. So, do you think they will shut us down again? Or what?
They're going to try. If the second wave happens, which I'm concerned about, we don't know if it will. We don't know. That's the thing, is we don't know if it will happen. But if it does happen, wherever the outbreak is happening, they need to do shelter in place to slow it down. It doesn't mean they should shut down the whole country, all right? And we have a better understanding on how to handle this disease, and we have better hospitals equipped to be able to handle the surge if there is a surge. So we should take the risk. But if there is a secondary wave, we have to act prudently and shelter in place in that area. But the people that aren't sick, that don't have the outbreak, they still need to carry the torch and support our Constitution and continue the protesting and making sure that there's not forced vaccines, and that we push for a therapeutic. That I don't want the vaccine. I want something like remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine or something that can be detoxed out of our body, not a vaccine that they're monkeying around with, and we have no understanding what the long-term effects are.
See, I don't know. That's the problem. I mean, I don't know if this is everybody, but like my wife, and I've talked to some friends, and they're like,
but we can
Get
slow.
a vaccine, then
No,
we
no,
can
no,
go
no, no.
back
Don't
to
do
play."
it. Don't go down that road, man. Don't go down that road. The way to do it is that you can boost your immune system by just using simple things like the chaga mushroom, the vitamin C. You can boost your immune system to be able to fight this. It's not a cure. It's not going to kill the virus, but it's going to boost your immune system so you have a fighting chance. And the amount of infections will drastically go down. The reason why that the Eastern Seaboard, I think, my humble opinion, I think the Eastern Seaboard received so many cases is two reasons. One is the population density, and two, we are vitamin D deficient. You look at other areas, you don't have the population density and you don't have the vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been taking a multivitamin and then taking vitamin C.
You gotta take a lot. You gotta take a lot of vitamin C. Take a lot of vitamin C.
Is there too much vitamin C?
No.
No.
You gotta take a lot of it. But I mean, I mean, if you tell me your size, I can tell you like roughly how much you should be taking.
I don't know, 5'9", 210 probably.
All right. So what I would do is I would probably do, and you don't do this all at once. You spread it out through the day, but I would take about 8,000 individual units or milligrams. I think it's measured in milligrams. So 8,000. So you can like divide that by 4. So it's like 2,000 throughout the day, like 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2, maybe about 3, 4 o'clock, and then maybe 2 at night, and then drink some water. Make sure you're drinking water because it's water soluble. And the D3, you got to take D3 also.
D3.
Yeah, take D3. But are you out in the sun a lot or no?
Yeah, I do heating and air conditioning, so I'm, we're setting the air conditioner, so I'm outside.
Okay, so you're getting enough sun. You're getting enough sun then.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to worry about your D3. You're probably not deficient in that. But the thing is that it's not a cure. People think that just take vitamin C and it'll kill the virus. No, it's not how it works. But what you got to do is you have
Give yourself a chance.
You got to boost up your immune system, and people that have a really good immune system have less. It's just a correlation. They have less cases. So let's do what other people are doing that have less cases. That's just the natural thing. But other people like Cliff High, he's taken the chaga mushroom with the high vitamin C. So that's an antiviral. So an antiviral and anti-inflammatory. So that also helps, and it's proven on a in vitro paper that's on my website actually that some of the compounds that are in the chaga mushroom and birch bark extract will be a protease inhibitor for 3CL, which is one of the proteases that are used to make or fold the replicase. So, proper nutrition is important, is a big part of us getting out of shelter in place, because it reduces your chances of getting another wave of this. And it just overall, it boosts your immune system so you won't have the flu or you won't get other pathogens and you'll be able to fight it and you won't be as sick. People that have chronic sickness is almost always because they have some sort of nutritional deficiency, and you got to boost it up. And once you boost it up, if we all work together, we all protect our constitution, we all boost up our immune system, we won't need these damn vaccines.
Do you know at all, like, how long it takes to build up your immune system? Like, my wife had breast cancer 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if she has a full immune system.
I don't know that answer.
Did
she go through chemo?
She did.
Did she have a mastectomy?
Double mastectomy, yeah.
Was it radical? Or just partial?
What do you mean it's a radical?
But like a radical one is just like they take the whole thing off.
Well, they definitely did take the whole thing out, yeah. It was estrogen driven. I don't know. HER2 positive. I don't know what that means, but so she's on medicine to suppress her estrogen, I think.
No, I mean she's got a complication. She's definitely has a complicated situation going on there. But the things that I'm talking about aren't negative to her system. I mean, these are natural things that aren't going to cause problems. I mean, having vitamins, more vitamin C for her, and if anything, because like Cliff High, he went through cancer. He had, he had to rehabilitate his body, and he rehabilitated his body with the vitamin C and the chaga mushroom, and the vitamin D. So following that kind of protocol for her should be okay.
Yeah, I didn't know if her immune system was still compromised, I guess.
No, I mean she was compromised when she was taking the chemo.
Right.
But I think she's probably okay now. But how long has it been? Has it been past the 5-year mark?
It's right about 5 years right now.
Yeah.
So.
If anything, is her energy levels okay?
Well, with her staying home with the kids, no, she doesn't have much energy.
No. But I mean, like before the.
Oh yeah. I think she's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt that, to have everyone in your family, boosting up their immune system. But I think this is a common thing in the United States, is that people are not getting the proper nutrition. And enough of the vitamin C, enough of the vitamin D, enough of this chaga mushroom type stuff. There's other things like turmeric. I mean, I personally don't take chaga mushroom, but I take vitamin C, and I take turmeric, and I take a whole bunch of other stuff that I call my protocol, that that I told people what I've done since I've been 16 years old. So so I've been really into the whole antioxidant longevity movement for a while, but proper nutrition is paramount, and that's part of our arsenal to get out of shelter in place. You want to go back to work, people need to get the proper nutrition, so they can when they do go out, they reduce the chances of getting sick. So proper nutrition, proper diet, proper exercise are very important. That's part of the whole equation here. It's not just shelter in place. It's also all this other stuff. But also part of that equation is protecting our civil liberties.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I don't even know what to think.
Well, I am positive that we will find a way out of this and get around the tyranny that they're trying to institute. We, as Americans, can find a way. But sometimes Americans need a kick in the butt to make it happen. And maybe that's what I am, is I'm the butt kicker to try to get everyone moving. I don't know. I don't really want to be the butt kicker, but I seem to be the butt kicker. But I just want people to just protect their civil liberties. It's for themselves. It's for their children. It's for the whole country. But we have to do it together. We can't let if we just fall asleep on this, there's not going to be another event in our lifetime where we'll have a good reason to be protesting against the government as we have right now. I'm not talking about like a 2% tax up or down and talking about, should we have a bridge or not have a bridge? That's not what we're protesting about. We're protesting about the very foundation of our country. This is the most important thing we can do in our lifetime. Are we going to sit down and say we shoulda, coulda, woulda, or are we going to say we did?
So I know you say contact our congressman and everything. Are you pretty much just saying against mandatory vaccines?
I'm against mandatory vaccines. I'm against, this is what I stand for. I'm against the mandatory vaccines. I'm against the forced shelter in place where it is destroying our wealth. I'm against E7. You know what E7 is.
Right? Oh, yeah.
So, I'm against E7 where they're using it as a surveillance technology. I'm against decaching. And I want to go back to a pre-9/11 day where the surveillance grid by the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and Homeland Security goes back to a pre-9/11 day. I want to dismantle the security apparatus.
I guess I don't understand how I would go about contacting my congressman and what would I be saying, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
This is recorded, all right?
Okay.
So you can keep on playing this video and just keep until you memorize what I just told you. I just told you the answer.
Okay.
You just call them, and if you have to, I know this sounds kind of strange, but if you have to look in the mirror and just repeat it 100 times to burn it in your brain, that's what you do. You say you don't want a decaching, because here you don't want decaching because it's gonna prevent you from taking money out of the bank. And it should be your right to be able to take money out of the bank. Right? Because, right, if you want to put your money and save it in the bank or under your mattress, that should be your right. When they decash you, you can't do that. If they do social scoring on you, that means that you got to toe the government line, or they're going to prevent you from doing certain things, like get a job, like they're doing in China. You don't want that. You don't want E7 because it's part of the surveillance grid. It allows them to surveil you. It's part of the social scoring. You don't want that. The police officers, the police officers should not have military grade equipment, especially drones. There's no reason for that. And we shouldn't have forced vaccines because they're not safe. It should be your right to pick. It should be your right to choose if you want the vaccine or not. It should be under your consent, not forced upon.
Yeah.
So these are things that I don't need to tell you. They're inside your soul. You know what's right and what's wrong. Just tell them what's right and wrong. But that's the elements of the BioPatriot Act. And when going back to a pre-9/11 day, you remember what life was like before 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, they rolled in the Patriot Act and we had never-ending tyranny with the NSA and the FISA courts and the out of control FBI and the CIA and Homeland Security. That needs to all go away. There's no reason for it. None whatsoever. So, just make it happen. All you got to do is keep on bugging your representatives at the local level, at the state level, and even at the federal level. But also protest. You got to galvanize and protest in your local community and saying, we are not going to let this happen. We're not going to do, you're going to tell us to go back into shelter in place. We're going to say no. Just because, if your region didn't have the reinfection, you should not be sheltering in your place. Go, no, we're not going to do it. We'll do whatever it takes to help the people that are infected and have to go into shelter in place. We'll help them. But we're going back to work and we're going to rebuild America. People have to just say no. Instead of saying, oh, okay, Mr. Governor, okay, Mrs. Governor. And then the Juris Doctorates out there that are listening, they need to start suing. Start using your skill sets and start suing.
That's funny you say that. A coworker today said, I wonder if somebody's going to start suing the government.
Yeah, it'll start happening, trust me.
Yeah, I hope.
But there's just I'm surprised it hasn't happened large enough. In large enough force here. All those Juris Doctorates have a skill. They have learned the Constitution. They have learned law. They have learned on how laws are made. They have learned all the court systems and all this stuff. The average person doesn't know that. All right? They have a skill. They need to step up to the plate and fight for the fucking Constitution.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there like me. Like I said, I don't understand the laws and what I should be saying to people, but
you just gotta like I said, just listen to this show one more time and just write down these key points. But it's got to come from your heart. It has to come from your heart.
I just feel like I'll call our governor and be like, oh no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
No, you just say it's not. No, he'll say, or she'll say, oh, don't worry, that's not going to happen. You go, no, you're not listening to me, Mr. Governor. I'm telling you what to do. You are my representative. You are a public servant, and you work for me. We don't work for you, and so you will not do this. You just are forceful. You have to be like, you don't understand, Mr. Governor. I'm telling you what to do. I'm not asking. I'm telling. That's the kind of forcefulness that you have to tell them. You're not asking. You're not asking for permission. You're telling them what they're going to do. Because if they go down that road, it's treason. And when we do win, eventually when we do win, and they're charged for treason, they'll hang from a tree. Because traitors hang from trees.
All right, well, that helps.
You just tell them what you want. You don't ask for permission.
Okay.
See, what it is they spun it where they think that they're in control. They're the governor and they're going to tell you what to do. No, that's not how it works. That's not how this thing works. They work for us. They are our employee. Do you think an employee tells the boss what to do at their company? No. Right?
Right.
Right. So the governor is going to tell you what to do? No. You tell the governor what to do. And again, if push comes to shove and it goes to court, they're going to be, they'll lose. Because the Constitution's on our side. Our founding fathers said, there may be a time where they're going to try to take away these civil liberties. And that's why they were written into the Constitution. And it's our obligation as citizens, not just our right, but our obligation to make sure that we uphold that Constitution. So everyone needs to get off their fucking ass and start moving. The time for talking is over.
Right.
Okay, so I've been going at it for about 161 minutes or something, so I'm a little tired now. So thank you for calling, but I'm going to shut down the broadcast tonight.
All right.
But thank you for calling. I appreciate it. But don't give up. We need you on the battlefield and telling your governor, hell no, they're not doing this.
All right. Well, I've been trying to tell as many people as I can about your channel, so.
Well, I appreciate that, but what's more important is you protecting the Constitution.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for letting me talk. Sorry, I made maybe it didn't make sense.
No. It made complete sense. It made complete sense, and a lot of people that are listening or will be listening are thinking the same things that you're thinking. So just don't be afraid. Just tell your governor, hell no. But do it nicely. But be forceful. And why? I told you why. And on all these different elements of the Biopatriot Act. All right?
Okay.
All right. You have a good night, all right?
Yep. Good talking to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so that's the end of tonight's special call-in session. And, hopefully you learned something about it and it galvanized you. We have to band together. And all the people that are bickering, we need to just find common ground and just make it happen. We cannot have our Constitution eroded. And we have to tell our government no and hell no. So thank you for listening and have a nice day.